Hey, yeah, what's up? This disciple Marcello Kearns reign back up in this anti-Illuminati all day, anti-America all day, anti-Satan all day, anti-Freemason all day, anti-gang stalker all day, anti-telepathy all day. Yeah, so this video right here is going to be about my ongoing campaign concerning the investigation, the most overlooked investigation of Donald Trump, the most overlooked investigation by your whole American community, the most overlooked investigation on Donald Trump. Okay, there was an investigation that took place that was done by the House Select Subcommittee, right? And this is a group of individuals that investigate the likes of White House administrations. So they investigated Donald Trump concerning COVID-19. So that's what we're going to be talking about, because half of y'all, this is information right in front of your face, just like 43 states of child marriage, just like the last child marriage law was passed under the Donald Trump administration. Information right under y'all face, and y'all don't even know. Okay, so it shouldn't surprise you, because I need to do a video just about this. It's just information that's out there that, I don't know if it's because everybody's smoking loud, but it's all information out there that, is right in front of us and everywhere, and no one knows about it. No one talks about it. No one is aware of it. So this is the most, I would esteem as the most overlooked investigation on Donald Trump. Okay, this investigation was performed by the House Select Subcommittee, and they investigated Donald Trump just on COVID-19. That's what this was about. This is an investigation just on COVID-19, not on a whole bunch of other stuff, not on all that stuff that he doing now. He on trial for it now. None. This is about specifically COVID-19. They investigated him. The House Select Subcommittee. Look up that group of individuals. The House Select Subcommittee. The House Select Subcommittee. Okay? It's a group that I wasn't aware of myself. So don't be arrogant. You didn't know about it. Read about it. It's the House Select Subcommittee. It's a group that investigates the White House administrations. Anybody that's in the White House, this group, if necessary, I would imagine would be the group that would investigate the White House administrations. Okay, so I'm going to read what they concluded on Donald Trump's handling of COVID-19. Okay, this is their findings after investigating Donald Trump on COVID-19. Okay, so this is from an article. You could look it up yourself. It comes from the Daily Beast. It's like I said, it's about the House Select Subcommittee investigating Donald Trump's handling of COVID-19. If you put in Daily Beast, the House Select Subcommittee investigating Donald Trump on COVID-19, you should be able to get the article with no problem. That's enough keywords that should bring up the article. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to read at the beginning, the first two paragraphs. It's just going to get straight. It's going to be straight to the point. It's just going to be the foundation of what they concluded. So it reads: a House oversight panel found former President Donald Trump and his administration routinely undermined efforts to fight the coronavirus pandemic last year, prolonging a deadly public health disaster in hopes of winning an election he eventually lost. So I'm going to read that paragraph again. A House oversight panel found former President Donald Trump and his administration routinely undermined efforts to fight the coronavirus pandemic last year, prolonging a deadly public health disaster in the hopes of winning an election he eventually lost. Second paragraph and last paragraph. The conclusion was part of a 46-page report released Friday by the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis. The report collated documents that had largely been released in the preceding months, including documents showing that the Trump administration prevented public officials from giving public briefings on the virus and attempted to play down the importance of testing. And I'm going to read that again. Second paragraph, last paragraph. The conclusion was part of a 46-page report released Friday by the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis. The report collated documents that had largely been released in the preceding months, including documents showing that the Trump administration prevented public officials from giving public briefings on the virus and attempted to play down the importance of testing. So, this is basically what happened. Donald Trump, this is facts. He intentionally had a slow response to COVID in hopes of being reelected, as it says, prolonging a deadly public health disaster in the hopes of winning an election he eventually lost. That's what it says. And this investigation was by the House Select Subcommittee. Now, just like everything else that I'm talking about, I don't understand how your community, just like with child marriage in 43 states, just like actually the last child marriage law that was passed under the Donald Trump administration, I ain't even talking about that part, where he was in office when the last child marriage law was passed. I'm talking about his handling of COVID-19 and how this investigation passed by the House Select Subcommittee has been in obscurity this whole time. This is basically, let me break it down. This investigation basically showed, improved in a 46-page report concerning Donald Trump's handling of COVID-19, that he intentionally had a slow response to get reelected. Okay, so you would say, well, how does he get reelected by having a slow response? How does he get reelected? How does that work? Because a slow response is going to bring on negative results at the polls, right? One would think so. So how can we explain how the House Select Subcommittee felt that Donald Trump's slow response to COVID was a result of trying to get political points, when having a slow response won't bring good political points, would it? Well, you would think so. The reason why this adds up as having a slow response on COVID just for political points, ultimately to get reelected, how it adds up is, if he wanted this to flare up, this disease to flare up, COVID-19 to flare up, he would come in and fix it, and you would reelect him. You would give him political points for fixing the virus in the community. That's what it was all about. He basically used COVID-19 as a business opportunity to get reelected. He utilized it. He tried to utilize it. He tried to utilize it so that he could get reelected by letting it flare up in your community and then coming in and fixing it, and you singing his praises, and you reelect him this way. That's what he intentionally did. But he didn't know that it was going to be that big. He didn't know it was going to be that huge. So it backfired. He had no idea. The only way he's innocent, the only place he's innocent is he didn't really know how big COVID was going to be. He thought it was going to be like a swine flu, and he thought it was going to be something like the bird flu or something, mad cow disease or something, and he would come in and fix it, right? And you would reelect him. Okay, but ultimately he still put you in your community in harm's way to get reelected. That's where the blood is on his hands, literally. Because you should have thought, why do we have it more than anybody else? Why do we have it more than the country that actually, where the COVID-19 originated at? How come we have it more than them? Because Donald Trump had a slow response intentionally. Kamala Harris told you the same thing at the vice presidential debate in October 2020, where she explained that the White House knew about COVID-19 in January 2020, and they told you nothing about it. That's the first thing she said. You don't even have to watch the whole debate. Go look at the vice presidential debate 2020 and Kamala Harris, her first arguments against the Republicans are they had a slow response. They knew about COVID-19 and they told you nothing about it. Okay, that's her first argument. Okay, so it's not just me that feels this way. It's not just my biased argument. This has been concluded by the White House, the House Select Subcommittee that works on investigating White House's administrations. All right, and Vice President Kamala Harris told you that the White House had an intention. They knew about COVID-19 and they didn't tell you about it. That's what she said specifically. They knew about COVID-19 and they didn't tell you about it. Okay, so that being said, this is very credible. This is very credible information from very, very credible sources. It's very credible sources and very credible information. This is not fake news. The people that investigate White House administrations are not somebody to write off as bad anchormen and women down at Fox News or something. These are not news anchormen and women. These are people whose job is to investigate White House situations. Okay? So they investigated Donald Trump specifically on COVID. And the whole American culture and community has been virtually quiet about the whole thing. Okay? And so this basically is what I am addressing today. This obscure investigation, this mysterious investigation that everyone has overlooked, that tells us everything we need to know about why COVID-19 has spread it in your country as it has, and who was behind the whole spread and the million plus people that are dead now. And they're still dying today. For people that don't realize that COVID-19 is still killing people, you're not watching that death toll anymore, that COVID-19 death toll website anymore. If you go check it out every week, there's at least how many people died? I forget. But it's like I think it's like 3,000 a week. 3,000 people die a week now from COVID-19. It's about that. It's about 3,000 a week nationwide. As far as America, it's about 3,000 a week that still die from COVID, regardless of whatever's going on out here. 3,000 die a week. Okay? So keep that in mind. People are still dying from it. It's just because it's done slow down and all of that, people are still dying from it. Okay? Okay, so the House Select Subcommittee is a group that, like I said, is qualified, they probably overqualified to investigate White House administrations. And this group investigated Donald Trump. And they concluded that he had, after a 46-page report, they concluded that he had an intentional slow response to COVID to get reelected. Now, remember, it was election year. It was election year, 2020. COVID-19 came and everyone was totally blindsided concerning or shell-shocked or distracted, all of that concerning election year. No one was thinking about election year. Everybody was thinking about from probably January to about August was COVID. That's what everybody was thinking about. That's what everybody was talking about. Nobody cared really about it being election year, although it was election year. Who cared about the fact that it was election year was Donald Trump. He knew it was election year. So this is why he had a slow response on COVID, because he wanted it to flare up and get out of control, and then he would come in like a mad scientist and fix it. This is why he did that. Because how can you make sense of the investigation that the House Select Subcommittee did that concluded that Donald Trump had a intentional slow response to COVID for political points? How can you make a sense of a negative situation turned into political points? A slow response is negative. A slow response is not positive. A slow response is not good. So how can it bring about political points? How it brings about political points is that it was used. This slow response was part of an action to use COVID-19 that is out of control to where he can fix it. And you would sing his praises and re-elect him. So the whole political points, because this could have been an off year as far as election year and all of that. It could have been an off year, right? It could have been a total off year. It could have been a total off year where he didn't really have to do anything for political points, and COVID-19 could have came in an off year besides election year, not election year, where he wouldn't have needed per se at that time political points, but it was election year. This is what you forget. So this further strengthens the perspective that this is why he did it, because COVID came during election year where he was trying to get reelected, right? So, okay, imagine Donald Trump being in that situation. Election year's up, COVID-19 comes on the scene. This is a businessman who thinks about opportunities. This is an opportunist, a flaky opportunist, right? So he sees this opportunity to use this virus during election year. This is the part that you got to remember, because this strengthens his motives. This helps you understand his motives for why he did it in the time he did it, okay? Because it was re-election time. It was election year, okay? So he sat there, he thought about it as a businessman would, a flaky one like himself, a con artist one like himself. He looked to use it as an opportunity to get you to see, hey, look what I did. I cleaned up this virus. I cleaned up this virus in your community. I cleaned up this virus in your community. Now you should reelect me for that. And so he was going to do it like that. This would be something else on his resume. But he did not realize this would be something else in his portfolio, but he didn't realize that COVID-19 was that big of a monster. He didn't realize that. And so him intentionally having a slow response for political points during election year backfired because he didn't know how big COVID-19 was going to be. This explains why it got out of control. This explains why we couldn't see the eye of the storm and track it in a sophisticated time that we are in, to where we could see where it was mainly at, and we could have suffocated the fire and got rid of it. But there was a slow, intentional response to it for political reasons. See, election year in the White House is like inspection at your job. Now, you know what inspection is at your job, right? Inspection for young people who may not know. I don't see how you don't know, but inspection is when the big wigs come in. All the people who own where you work at. They own the building. They're part owner of the business itself. They come in and take inventory of the whole building, and for the most part, they take inventory of the environment, making sure that everything is within regulations. Okay? Make sure everything is up to par. Everything looks pretty. Everything is good. Everything's clean. There's no liabilities, right? They're making sure basically during inspection time, they're making sure that there is no liabilities whatsoever that would make them liable as business owners of where you work at. So that's why your manager will tell you it's inspection time and you got to do all this unnecessary stuff that you ain't been doing. Let's keep it real. Let's keep it 100. You go to the job and you're like, I ain't never did that before. You got to clean this, clean that, clean all of on top of this and all of that and all of this and everywhere. Because the big wigs are coming in and they're going to take inventory of everything. And they know that you ain't been, they wasn't born yesterday. They know that you don't got it like that all year round. But just don't be caught slipping when we come around, so that we got to find you. Okay? So when inspection happens at any corporation or company, it's the big wigs that come in. It's the big wigs that come in and they investigate basically the environment. They investigate and make sure that there's no liabilities. That's what they do. They make sure it's no liabilities. And okay, so that's what it's all about. That's what inspection is all about. It's about all the people who own the business coming in and being able to see, that there are no liabilities. There's nothing wrong with the environment. Everything is clean. Everything is good. Everything is up to regulations. The fire escape situations are good. There's no hazards, fire hazards, et cetera, et cetera. There's no pest situation, even bugs. They may check for bugs and roaches and everything like that. They just making sure the whole environment is liability free, right? That's what they're making sure of. Okay. Election year at the White House is the equivalent of inspection. Okay. It's inspection for the White House. Election year is inspection for the White House. If for the president that's already in there, he or she is trying to keep their position. So now it's inspection time and they have to make everything look pretty. They have to make everything look impressive, everything look good, up to par. So they have to do this politically. They have to make sure during their inspection time in the White House that everything is up to par. Everything is good. All things are going good. Policies are good. They got to make sure that their job is running smoothly, according to the big wigs, according to people who has the yay or nay on re-electing, which includes you. You're part of White House inspection. They show you their politics. They show you what they're doing. They show you what they plan on doing. This is part of making sure their administration environment is up to par. They have to make sure that they're going to do this, they're going to do that, all the things, the policies that they talked about, they're going to make sure all of that is intact just for you. You are part of the bigwigs. You are part of the people who determine the yay or nay on whether they get to keep their position. Okay, so it is the equivalent of inspection. All right? It's the equivalent of inspection. When you realize this, you realize why Donald Trump had an intentional slow response to COVID-19 during inspection time. Now, most people will say, well, why would he have an intentional slow response to COVID during inspection year, which would look horrible for everybody? I mean, for everybody that's watching, it would look totally horrible. So why would he have an intentional slow response during inspection year, during inspection time? Why would he have an intentional slow response? Because he thought he would be able to hide from you the whole tampering with the situation, right? The whole slow response part. He would just let it get out of control. You wouldn't know that he let it get out of control, basically, and he would come in and fix it. He would come in and fix it. And you would see this good work. Hear this part. You would see his good work during inspection year and inspection time. And you would say, well, re-elect him. Look what he did. Look what he did. See, what? Keep in mind, everybody will be paying extra attention to the White House during election year. There's extra attention on it. It wasn't a down year. See, like right now, this is not election year. So it's kind of, compared to election year, it's a down year as far as taking inventory of an administration. So what Donald Trump wanted to do was come in, utilize this virus during inspection time, do it cleanly to where it gets out of control. He comes in, he fixes it in front of you during inspection time. Just like as if the big wigs are at a company, any company. They come to the company, right? And they see you fix something right in front of their face. And they're like, wow, yeah, that's pretty cool. You did that. That wasn't your fault, but you fixed it right in front of us. That's basically what COVID-19 was. That's how he wanted to utilize it. He wanted to utilize it as if he was during inspection, during inspection, he was able to fix a problem right in front of the big wigs that own the company, right in front of the big wigs that have the yay or nay on his position, which would be you and all the politicians and all the Republicans and et cetera, everyone that's going to vote. He wanted to fix it right in front of you all, and you therefore sing his praises, and it would be another notch in his belt for why he should be reelected. It wouldn't be the all-in-all reason, but it would look good. That's all he wanted to do. He didn't know how big COVID was going to be, so he just wanted it to look good on his portfolio. It was just going to be another notch, not this big, huge thing. It was going to be the equivalent of the swine flu, the bird flu, or mad cow disease, that caliber, because we had no reference point for a COVID-19 disease, right? As far as how widespread it could spread and all of that, right? So he had that, his only reference point had to be something like swine flu. And he thought that it would just be, just a swine flu situation. And he'll come in and fix it and it'll look good for inspection year in the White House. And he would get reelected. Look how good the president is. Look what he did. He got us out of this situation with this virus. Let's reelect him. Especially among the politicians. They're the ones that's going to understand all that more than you. They're going to understand that he came in and fixed the virus, and it makes him look more competent in the case that we would have to face another virus or some crisis situation. So it was more it would be more profitable in that situation if he had fixed COVID, because you didn't really know what COVID was going to be. And if he fixed it before it flared up, or any other virus, if you fixed it, you would applaud it, but you wouldn't really nod like people who understand politics and positions of the president, like these politicians do. They would be the ones that give him the yay for re-election. So it was really more for the bigwigs. But more for the bigwigs, because they understand how competent this would make him look. They understand what it would take and consist of to ward off a virus from the community. You may take that for granted, but you may look at it for like, he took care of virus, but that's why he had to make it. He wanted it to flare up a little bit, just so you could see it. That's how he got you. He got you where you do it just enough for you to. He let it flare up enough just for the public to see it and get a little scared. He comes in and fixes it, and that's how he gets your votes. He's going to get the votes of the bigwigs, the big politicians, based on just handling and warding off a virus as president. Okay? So that explains why he did all of that. But he did not know how big COVID-19 was going to be. And it flared up, and it was like a fire that he couldn't put out, and it was a disaster. He put you in harm's way. This is what you have to realize. He put you in harm's way. He was willing to sacrifice. Hear this part. He was willing to sacrifice. We can agree that he was willing to sacrifice at least some hundreds of people. Can we agree on that? That's a 7 hour. He was at least willing to sacrifice hundreds of people's lives. Well, he had to let it flare up, and flaring up would be not just the disease just running around town, painting around town red. For it to flare up, you would have to get it. He was willing. This is what you need to look at. He was willing to let hundreds of you suffer with the COVID-19 virus. Well, for it to flare up, you got to get it. And now that you know what COVID-19 is, you see how evil that was? He didn't know, but it's karma. See, you don't know what you're doing sometimes. You thought you put people in harm's way, and you thought it would be all good. You didn't care if you sacrificed a couple hundreds of people, even thousands, a couple thousands, even hundreds of thousands. He don't care about that. Million, he don't want to probably do that. But it's safe to say, if he has a slow response to this virus, he's at least willing to let 100 people go from the community. You don't have any experience with this virus. You do know it's deadly. It's been esteemed as deadly, right? Okay, you do know this part. He did know this part. Let us keep that in mind. Okay, even though he didn't know how big it was going to be, he was informed that it was a deadly disease. He was informed of that part. And he had an intentional slow response in spite of that information. Which means he had to, as a smart person, be willing to sacrifice a couple hundred to thousands of people. To hundreds of thousands of people. He had to be willing to sacrifice hundreds of thousands of people. Okay? When he's already been informed that it's a deadly disease, he had to have a mindset, well, okay, this is a deadly disease. I have to be willing to give up hundreds of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even maybe 500,000. So this is the part that I emphasize this time around, is that he had to have a heart to sacrifice some of you. He was willing to let some of you go to the grave for him to get reelected. Now you see why the evil is in the air. Now you see why there's an evil stench everywhere. And all kind of other stuff is going on, because evil breeds evil, in my opinion. Yeah, that's pretty safe to say. Bacteria breeds bacteria, doesn't it? Evil breeds evil. He put your community in harm's way. That's the bottom line. He was willing to kill. A competent, smart person is willing to that understands this situation, understands that if it's already been esteemed as a deadly virus, he's willing to put you in harm's way, which means he's willing to let a couple hundred of people to thousands, to hundreds of thousands die in order for him to get reelected. This is what you need to put emphasis on. This is what you need to realize. Now, you see what I'm saying? This is the part that defines this whole situation. He was willing to put you in harm's way. Well, yeah, if he was willing to have a slow response to what was esteemed as a deadly virus, then what does that tell you? You don't think he thought, well, some people's going to die. Maybe some people are going to die, but of course he had to. That's part of the cost of having a slow response on a deadly virus, something that's esteemed as deadly. Well, it's safe to say that somebody might die if you have a slow response on a deadly disease and virus. Right or wrong? It had to be considered, is what I'm trying to show you. It had anybody with a brain enough to get in the White House has, when they're confronted with a deadly disease and they know they're going to have a slow response intentionally, they already know that some people could die as a result of a slow response on a deadly disease. Okay, it ain't like, gee, I didn't know that was going to happen. They already told you it was a deadly disease. So you should have took the precaution. Instead of taking the precaution of having a quick response to what was esteemed already as a deadly disease, he had a slow response to what was esteemed as a deadly disease. And you know it crossed his mind that people could die as a result of having a slow response to a deadly disease. It feels good to be on the right path to this whole situation. That's what feels good. Being on the right path in this whole situation. That man had a slow response to COVID intentionally. A virus already esteemed as deadly by those who informed him of it. Most likely being the Chinese. They already told him this. And be reminded, he doesn't like the Chinese that much. He doesn't really like the Chinese. He never did. And then after, well, he always had this ongoing thing. And then after COVID-19, he called it what? The Kung flu. Asked to say Kung Fu, he said the Kung flu. He didn't like the Chinese. And what I suspect is when they told him this information, he had some arrogance and some scoffing under his breath because this information was given by the Chinese. So there was this arrogance, this American arrogance, also a part of his response to COVID-19 because the Chinese told him. Now, if some other country may have told him, the UK, he may have responded differently. So I think a slight percentage of his response, maybe 5 to 12% of his response was also based on arrogance dealing with the Chinese. Well, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do anything. We're going to see what is going on. Just because it's the Chinese telling them that. You see what I'm saying? So the bottom line is your whole community has not considered this investigation that the House Select Subcommittee did on Donald Trump concerning COVID-19, because really, in all actuality, you were too shell-shocked from the whole situation. You already knew it was a circus at the White House, and that became a blur of informations, and that became a blur in general. And this investigation that they did concerning COVID-19 just seeped through the cracks during the heat of COVID-19. And your whole community never bounced back to wipe their brow and get some fresh air and get out the heat and get this information. They never did that. They never got to that point. So here we are, me giving you information that you should have been knew about concerning the House Select Subcommittee investigating Donald Trump handling of COVID-19. And they concluded after a 46-page report that Donald Trump had an intentional slow response to COVID for political points. 4 political points. An intentional slow response. This is what the House Select Subcommittee said. I didn't say it, they said it. And I might note over and over again that they are qualified, more than able, more than qualified to investigate the likes of any administration. So it's not this fake news posse that comes along and try to incriminate and demonize Donald Trump. Okay? If there is a fake news posse, it's not going to be them. Okay? They would not tarnish their own credibility and integrity based on the likes of Donald Trump, just to get him out of office, just to get him out the way. So that's what this is all about. Them incriminating him to the point where, people will say that they did incriminate him, but they didn't. Okay, what this is about is bringing the results of what happened during COVID-19 times. Okay, that's what this is all about. Okay, so they wouldn't waste their credibility, like I said, on the likes of Donald Trump, trying to get him that bad. That's what I have to tell all these fake news people and all these people that would influence you and say it's fake news. Why would the House Select Subcommittee waste their credibility? This is what I want to show you. Why would they waste their credibility on the likes of Donald Trump, doing something underhanded, making up lies, having an investigation that really is a pack of lies? Why would they have a pack of lies investigation just to tarnish their own credibility as the House Select Subcommittee, just to get Donald Trump that badly? Out of all groups of people, whether it be Democrats, Republicans, people that do go after Donald Trump, I don't think the House Select Subcommittee would be that type of community or a group of people to engage in bias attacks. I don't think this was a bias attack. They took time to make a 46-page report, which is based on factual information. And like I said, and I can't stress it enough, they are qualified to investigate administrations, which means to me that they also have integrity, honor, purity. They have it all. Okay, so you have to decide, as I would say with Christians first, to walk away from that man first. You have to decide as Christians to walk away from that man. That's what you got to do. You got to walk away from him and don't turn back. Because that man intentionally, if you have been a Christian, and all these rappers too, you too, it's a handful of rappers that think it's cool to fight against the grain and be on Donald Trump's side. I guess it's some cool rap, hip hop, Darth Vader move. I guess, is that what it is? But whatever the case may be, I'm trying to get you to see you got to change that tune now. Because Donald Trump intentionally had a slow response to COVID for political points. This is not my opinion. This is not my assumption. This was determined by the House Select Subcommittee, who is qualified to investigate the wirings of the White House. They're qualified for this. And they have the honor codes, I would suspect, the honor codes, the purity, the integrity, all of that comes with investigating White House administrations. It's not just people that just, oh, okay, we got the technical goods. They also, I would imagine, they have the honor goods, they have the integrity goods as well. They have the character goods as well. Right? Because when you go into jobs like this, it's not so much that you just have the muscle. You have to also have the honor and the integrity and all of that, and the purity and all of that, right? I'm pretty sure that's going to be considered when you're responsible for investigating White House administrations. I'm pretty sure they're going to make sure that you're, accurate. You're accurate with your information. You're competent. You have integrity, you have honor codes, you have character. I'm pretty sure all of that is part of being qualified to be a part of the House Select Subcommittee. Unlike these news feeds and news places that, you don't have to really have any integrity, do you? I mean, you just have to, report what is factual, and you could throw your 2 cents in there every once in a while. We're not talking about the throwing of 2 cents into this situation of how Donald Trump handled the White House. I mean, how he handled the response to COVID during his administration. This isn't him. This isn't the House Select Subcommittee putting their 2 cents in the situation. Okay, they're honorable people of integrity, I would imagine. I mean, you're not just going to throw anybody out there to investigate the White House. I mean, come on. So it's safe to say integrity, character is part of the qualification for the House Select Subcommittee. And they concluded themselves, not influenced. I'm pretty sure they can't be influenced by anybody else. That's part of their character, integrity. That comes with being a people of integrity. They're not able to be influenced by outside forces. And so they concluded themselves that Donald Trump had a slow response, an intentional, key words. This is the words they use. I didn't add anything to it. I'm not paraphrasing. These are the words they used. They had an intentional response, Donald Trump had an intentional slow response to COVID-19 for political points. This is what these qualified people concluded. Now you see what I'm saying. These people of integrity, these people of character, they concluded that Donald Trump and his administration had an intentional slow response to COVID for this reason. For this reason. For political points. In other words, being an election year to get reelected. Ultimately, the political points are for re-election, being that it was election year. Okay? So he put you in harm's way. All these people that died, many of you who have lost people to COVID-19, Christians included, you know who you have to be angry with the most? It would be Donald Trump. This is and it's based off of this report, not an assumption, a report that an investigation that the House Select Subcommittee did on Donald Trump. It's not based on my opinion or theory. That's what separates me from conspiracy theorists. Okay, I am showing you what a qualified group of individuals called the House Select Subcommittee concluded. I'm showing you what they concluded. This is not, they're not conspiracy people. They're not conspiracy theorists. They're not conspiracy theorists. Okay? They concluded, people who are qualified to investigate the White House, they concluded that Donald Trump had an intentional slow response to COVID-19 for political points. This is why they made me the enemy. Because I've been talking about this. You can go watch my videos and I've been talking about this. It's just fitting now that all the pieces are coming together. It's fitting now to reinforce this. Now that he's on trial right now for other things. And you see that he has no character. How many scandals have this man been caught in? Okay, you got one now with the prostitution lady, Stormy Daniels. How more fitting of a prostitution name? Stormy Daniels. Stormy. He wanted Stormy, didn't he? He wanted a stormy sexual experience, didn't he? He wanted a stormy sexual experience, didn't he? Full of thunder and lightning. And you can't forget the rain. And it's just another testament. Look at him right now. It's just another testament of this man's character and integrity. So in other words, you shouldn't find this to be far-fetched at all. That this man would probably, based on the other things we see, how he's been crashed his whole presidency, he was crashed the whole time. Might we all agree on that? He was crashed the whole time. Said bitter things and, crash things, like I just said. Almost racist things, borderline racist things. All kind of things. Even the president, the presidency itself, they said it was stolen, and that was concluded January 6th, where he was inciting riots. So if you put it all together, you put this guy's character all together, is it far-fetched as far as accuracy that the House Select Subcommittee concluded that Donald Trump had an intentional slow response on COVID-19 for political points to get reelected? Is that far-fetched with all these other strong points of his character being revealed to you in the public? It's not far-fetched, is it? It's like you can almost see him doing it, can't you? I mean, look at his eyes. You can almost see this guy doing this, man. Sneaky, little beady eyes. Villain-like eyes. Villain-like haircut. That tailor-made villain-like haircut he got. See, half of y'all don't know he's bald in real life. That ain't his real hair. He's bald. You know who he would look like? Jigsaw off of the Saw. Off the Saw series. Donald Trump would look like, if he really had his real look, which is a bald head, he would look like Jigsaw off of Saw. No, go look at Jigsaw. and show and make a picture of Donald Trump with a bald head, and I promise you, he looks like Jigsaw off of Saw, man. You've been looking at a guy, that's not really him. His hair is part of his disguise. You need to see him with a bald head to see how he really looks. That's what I'm saying. Hey, it's part of the disguise. It's part of the deception. But the bottom line is, you have to realize that this man had a slow response to COVID, and that at least caused somebody to die. At least one person is dead because of him. That's all it takes. You go to jail, you kill one person, you're going to jail. Bottom line. And you can't tell me that with his slow response, that he's not responsible for one death. He's responsible for thousands of deaths. I'm just being generous. I'm coming down to the minimum. And I know at least he killed one person because of his ravenous political desire to be reelected. Okay? And so that's public enemy number one. Oh, I know you thought it was me, didn't you? Because these cowards have to find an emotional punching bag. They have to find somebody to blame. They have to find someone to cast the blame on, because they're cowards. They can't face themselves. So I'm making you face yourself. I'm making you see what went wrong and how it went wrong. Donald Trump had a slow response to COVID. The House Select Subcommittee concluded this. They concluded this with a 46-page report. And they concluded that he had an intentional, slow response to COVID-19, which, now that we know the virus, we know that a slow response costs many lives. It had to have, which means literally blood is on this man's hands. Don't you see the evil that is around that man? I know. And see, half of his supporters don't know this. Half of his supporters don't know about this investigation. It's like some side note situation. This is not a side note situation. See, I feel that probably hush money was given for this too. Just like hush money was given to Stormy Daniels, the prostitute that he allegedly slept with. Just as it is suspected that he gave her hush money, quote unquote hush money. I think that hush money was given about this investigation, because how can you explain it any other way how the whole culture and community has totally downgraded such an investigation like this? How can you explain that? This is a credible investigation that has just been tossed over with all the other stuff as if it was rhetoric about Donald Trump or some dismissive fake news. It's just been thrown on a pile of fake news assumptions. How can you explain such a credible investigation that was done about Donald Trump is just tossed aside, culturally speaking, publicly speaking? How's it just tossed aside like that? It probably was hush money. It probably was hush money. And there's no other way to look at it, because in actuality, it's credible. This is not rhetoric. This is not opinion. This is not bitter people, bitter opponents of Donald Trump. This is a committee that is paid to investigate administrations. They're paid to investigate administrations. Yeah. They're paid to do it. They're qualified to do it. They're in position to do so. They have the goods, the talents to investigate White House administrations thoroughly. They investigate the wirings, the matrix, if you will, the matrices of administrations. They're able to go into the matrix of any administration and do an investigation. But yet you have looked at this as some side note fake news stuff, when this has been a real investigation by real people that are really qualified to investigate people. They're qualified to do it. That separates them from me and you, and from all these other fake news people and all these people that oppose Donald Trump, that would be biased, people that just don't like him because of all that's been said. And they are separated from these people. They are separated from me and you and his opponents. Like I said, they would not waste their integrity on the likes of Donald Trump. They would not waste their integrity as a committee. This is part of their character. This is part of it. I'm pretty sure it's part of it to realize in some way that we can't waste, even if we don't like the sitting president, we cannot waste our integrity and character on this individual. I'm pretty sure that's an issue. That we can't be biased in our investigations. We can't be biased in our investigations, and I'm pretty sure this comes up to where we're incriminating an innocent president. No matter how much we might not like that person, I'm pretty sure this has come up as an issue for the House Select Subcommittee, whose job, or one of their jobs, is to investigate the likes of White House administrations. Obviously, biased behavior is not tolerated from the likes of the House Select Subcommittee. So it's not a biased situation. And based on, I'm pretty sure, them being qualified for this position, it's not an inaccurate situation. And that's most important. What's most important, whether they like Donald Trump or not, what's most important is that it's not an inaccurate situation. That's most important. Whether they like him or not, that's personal, irrelevant dynamics. What's most important is that the information is accurate. And see, that's what you need to also learn concerning everything I talk about. Whether you think I like America or hate America or whatever, all you should be going by is the accuracy of my information. My information is accurate. This is not something I wished on the moon and pondered up last night, wishing on the moon. I also didn't have to go into a cave by canoe and swim to lower parts of a cave and get this information out of a scroll in pottery, as if it was an ancient scroll somewhere. Or I didn't have to do a 007 operation where I went down into some bunker and got these files out of some archives. Now, did I? I didn't have to do any special 007 agent missions to get this information. This is information right here for you to see. This is stuff that you could easily see. This is information retrievable for you. And it should be another lesson learned of how much information is that you really don't know and how less competent it makes you as a community concerning things that you just absolutely don't know, that you could have known. You could have known this. You could have known this a long time ago, this time last year, in fact. Okay? This is how far behind you are. Because the Americans do not pride themselves on information and education. You do not pride yourselves on being smart. You pride yourselves on being tough, arrogant, prideful, cocky. You pride yourself on things that, quite frankly, teenagers would be arrogant about. Clothes, material things, trying to impress girls and women and men. Things that we were like when we were in high school. You have not grown to levels where now you pride yourself on the masteries of information and knowledge. You don't pride yourself on knowing your environments and what it's doing and not doing. And you don't pride yourself on being able to out incompetent leaders that are constantly over you like a disease. They stay over you like a disease because you don't pride yourself on being able to be competent enough yourself to out them, do you? It's just like we all never grew up. They gave you money. Yeah, you got money. That's the deception. But you're not educated. Therefore, you're still like a child in this sense, where you need someone like me to educate you on what you should know for yourself. So how could you think you're above me when you have need to be educated as if you were still in grade school? Every other country is not like this. You go to other countries and they are aware of their laws. They are informed of what has happened when it comes to investigations. They are informed about their investigations in their community. They are informed about their policies. Go check it out. Go check out how informed other countries are of their laws, policies, and incidences that they go through. Go see how informed they are of their own laws. See, here in America, they tell you as long as you got money, you're a man. And to me, it's still being a shell of who you are, which is still to be a slave. You got to remember, the slave master had no problem with us working, did he? He had a problem with us being educated. You know what the saying says? If you want to hide something from black people, what you do? You put it in the book. That's what people say. I don't agree with that, but because I think it's the whole American community that is like that now. If it was like that, it's everybody now. It's as if information and knowledge is too uncool for grown people. It's too uncool for you to sit down and educate yourself. It's too boring to be educated or take time to educate yourself. But he never had any problem with you working so up to date, because he can't really be the slave taskmaster that he once was. You think he got any problem with you working and making money? Because ultimately you're working for him. He don't got no problem with that. As long as you're still not what? Educated. As long as you're still not what? Informed. You can work all you want and think you the man all you want. Just no different than when people esteem themselves as men in slavery. They esteem themselves as men in slavery. Okay, but what separates you from children, what separates you from boys and girls is your level of information and education. That's what separates you ultimately from children, boys and girls. And you can't raise them without information and without knowledge. You can't raise them. Okay? This is why this investigation has gotten through the cracks as far as your culture. Because it's not pop culture. That's the 7th hour. It's not pop culture to be educated. It's not pop culture to find out your laws. It's not pop culture to find out about this Donald Trump administration. It don't slap, do it? It don't dance, slap, do this dance. It don't do that, do it. It don't slap when you hear the music, do you? It ain't slapping, is it? And this explains why you don't know you got 43 states of child marriage. You didn't know that, did you? Because you're not interested as a community in information and knowledge. You don't pride yourself as a grown man to be competent mentally about things about your community and laws and system. All you worried about is petty fights and foolishness, psychological wars going on. Look, that's how you know you're like childlike. And you thought it was me. I'm a long shot, way, way, way from being a man child. I know, because you thought I didn't have the quite kind of money I should have. I would say it like that. Because I didn't have the quite kind of money I should have. You think that I should have? Keep in mind that Malcolm X was not rich. MLK was not rich. Because I don't have the kind of money you think I should have, you think I'm a man child. I think you're a man child based off the fact that you don't have the information about 43 states of child marriage in your own country. I think many of you are man childs because you don't know that you got the age of consent under 18 in 40 states. I think many of you are man childs because the UCMJ program, which is the program in the military that determines the age of consent for servicemen to engage human beings, is set at 16 years old, meaning that all servicemen can have sex with 16-year-old girls, which in my opinion, which is fact, is child vagina. UCMJ determines the age of consent for all military servicemen. They said The age of consent is 16 years old. Last time I checked, a 16-year-old girl has a child vagina. Right or wrong? Right or wrong? Do we agree with adults having sex with children? Yes or no? We don't care what age a child. Do we feel it's wrong? Yes or no? So then you could not be a ruler or a judge over any type of adult and child sex because you already are actively doing that, which means you would be a hypocrite, which means you would not be accurate authority to determine anything of the such. You would not be accurate authority. You would not be competent authority to talk about anything that has to do with adults engaging children sexually. Now, would you? Well, not with 43 states of child marriage and your whole country is ignorant towards it. If this was in China, the Chinese would know their laws. You don't know your laws. Now you see how dopey you look. Now you see how dopey you look. And I'm going to tell you what it is. Everybody think they're too cool for school. You come out into the real world, you start working, and you don't adjust. You don't go get books. You don't go get ancient literature. You don't go educate yourself because you still think like high school jocks and alpha male jocks in high school. You think you're too cool to get extra information. You think you're too cool to get extra education. And the slave master was only concerned about you not being educated. You can work all you want. You can work all you want for him. He don't care nothing about that. So you don't think you don't think he has that same perspective that you can work all you want, as long as you don't educate yourself. Oh yeah, he give you the money now because he ain't got no choice. But the bottom line is, guess what? He hasn't changed his perspective on you being educated. Oh, you think he did? Oh, you think these racist people say, well, we let you work and get money. We also now want you to be educated. Come on, make it make sense, bro. Come on, make it make sense. He does not want you to be educated. He's still the same way. You explain to me why your whole country don't know about 43 states of child marriage, because all he wants you to do is work. It ain't nothing but a big old slave camp. You explain to me how there's whole law universities now, where people go and study laws and get degrees in all types of law, right? How you got whole law universities and nobody knows culturally about 43 states of child marriage? Go ask your mom, does she know about it? That's all. Just do a test yourself. Go ask your mom, do she knows? Go ask your dad, do they know? And when you ask them, do they know specifically that there's specifically 43 states of child marriage? Not that about child marriage in general. Ask them, do they know in America, 43 states of America has child marriage? Go ask them that. Go ask your grandmother. Go ask your granddad. Go ask your uncles and aunties and your cousins. And you will be amazed, whatever ethnicity you come from, how your community does not know anything about this. Yet, here you are, thinking you're competent over me to tell me something about myself. That's why it's not tolerated by the kingdom of God. It's not tolerated, bro. Not in that situation. I'm sorry to tell you.